Hey, everybody. It is sweet November. I'm Chris Brackett. We just got done filming yesterday talking about 8x. 8x, my farm, how I bought my farm, how I made everything around developing a big deer and my dream. And now we want to update everybody on what's happening right now when it's 70 degrees out there in the wilderness, in the middle of the rut. How do you hunt that? How do you hunt that? I mean, isn't that really the question? I'm Chris Brackett. I've got my friend Nathen with me. He is he's full of all kinds of questions. He's kind of a newbie. He's really into shed hunting. He started with me finding his first shed just a couple years ago. He's already has a couple nice deer under his belt, and he's passing up deer that I think that he should be shooting. So some of these things we're going to discuss. We're really going to key in on right now what is going on in Illinois and then go out from there. It seems to be that people don't know how mentally to go after the whitetail deer and the whitetail buck deer and the mature whitetail bucks when the temperature is 70 degrees. Is that what you think is going on out there, Nathen?
Well, I think that I could define myself as just an absolute amateur. And when it comes into the hunting world, I mean, it's easy to get influenced by things that really don't work. And it's easy to fall into those things as being an amateur because, you know, you got YouTube and different TV shows that get into your brain that you can do that.
Those TV guys, those stupid TV guys.
And, you gotta keep it simple at times and take 3 steps back and just try to learn off of that.
Do you think that most of the people listening, I talk over their heads with what I know? Or do you think that I'm hitting right where they need to be and I'm teaching them?
When you see it firsthand, like me,
yeah, What do you mean by firsthand?
When I've never been to a place with a food plot ever in my life. I've never seen, native grasses and what they can do for property. And so seeing that firsthand on your farm, it creates a whole new aspect to how you look at deer hunting.
You grew up just timber, woodlots. So when we talk about this, guys, we're talking about Central Illinois. He grew up in Central Illinois just like me. How old are you?
26.
So 26, 46. He could be my kid. Yeah. And so we have this fun relationship where I big brother him and I dad him a little bit, but we're buddies because, let's face it, I'm 46 with no children and I'm kind of a kid myself. So most people think I'm just like an old man that's like maybe still a kid at probably 60% of the things I do. And so I give him a hard time. I teach him life lessons. I think that's what this podcast is about. This is Land Life, the podcast. This is my journey. It is my ministry. It is my life. It is my life goal right now to teach men, teach women, teach people what I know. And I'm going to do it till somebody takes it away from me. I mean, because I really feel that this is my calling and I'll put everything into it. So, Woodlots, Illinois, that's where he comes from. We got big timber. We have really mature timber that used to be, back in the heyday of the big deer, used to be thick, but now all of our timber is getting really old and they don't have the young new growth, which is really great for browse and growing a lot of deer. So you didn't see the heyday back then. So now you're going into these invasive green plants called what? Autumn olive. Mm-hmm. And what's the other one we call them, like honeysuckle, and you got all these small green plants, and that's what we're going to talk about, where these deer are going. I just did a thing with my buddy Royce where these deer are going and how they're staying in these thickets and how they don't come out. And so that's the only thing Nathen has known is painting the picture right here for you. The only thing he has known is the big timber, the everything in Illinois runs from a flat field that they're farming every inch of it down into these gullies, into these ravines with these big trees. And then you got these invasive little thickets where we used to have multifloral rows and 10, 15-year-old trees. Now we've got 30, 40, 50-year-old trees. And then these invasive plants that kind of do the same thing, but they don't hold any thermal cover once December hits. And so that's all you've ever known. So walking these trails, doing your shed hunting, learning more about the deer, you're really into the land life. Mm-hmm. You really have started out kind of, I want to be a hunter, and then was like, I kind of like shed hunting, and I really like this land thing, and so you're still hunting permission pieces. So he is I believe that you are the normal 20-year, my junior at 26, coming into his own with his family, figuring out where his priorities are with hunting and what days to spend with your family. We just sent the girls shopping with his kids, and we're in this thing where it's like, it's November, it's hot, but there are bucks moving. Do you hunt? Do you help me film a podcast and teach everybody? Well, let's do it all, right? Let's do it all. Let's just make these decisions. We're going to spend 35 minutes here, and now you're going into these woodlots, trying to figure out these whitetails, probably invading a little too much, probably not going, thinking this wind's the right wind, and then realizing like, oh my gosh, this thing comes completely opposite, and I've been boogered into place. And then you're trying to, do I have time to flip it around and still capitalize on this big deer that's been on camera all of October? Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you were saying you are the consumer. You are the amateur hunter getting into it. You got a crossbow and a bow, trying to take your daughter, trying to experience the whole thing with your family. Passed up a nice deer the other day. Okay, go.
Well, I think I can't say I do definitely regret passing up that deer. I think that, again, I think it's the things that you see out there in the world that you want to get a bigger deer and you think you'll be satisfied with that. But I think Chris
you were talking about not being with food plots. I know I got you off track because I go on my spiel. You were talking about never being to a place with food plots or managed.
Yeah, or just in general on
hunting
a field.
woodlots, and then that's where I started. And so that gets you back on there. Like you had permission pieces, fields, ditches, a little bit of set aside grass, things like that. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so these just little parcels, I'm the parcel king. I feel like I just try to get these little parcels that I can, but seeing, your farm. We
all started like that. Most people have the same thing got going on.
And seeing your farm, it just puts a whole different ball game on to seeing how they operate, seeing how they pattern. I think I learned more from shed hunting and how deer pattern just through that.
It's one of my favorite times to find out what the woods unlocks. Those are pages in the book of whatever property holds. So one of my rules is that these deer flow out of the property using west winds, predominantly with a northwest, southwest, northwest, or predominantly coming out of the west. When a front gets here and it blows consistently, it's out of the west. Secondary, it's north or southwest, and then normally turns to a big front as it comes through and goes south or north. So if you're following me there, the predominant wind to kill and to hunt a property or set it up is to come into your property from the east. The wind is going to come out of the west. You can't beat deer in the bottoms consistently. That doesn't mean you can't invade down there and schlock a big one, because I just did that on the 28th. But if you're hunting ridge tops and out into the fields and you have the deer leaving them alone to the west, and those winds are coming out of the west, and then once kind of they come out of the west, it's normally going to be a warm pressure system coming out of the southwest, sometimes turning to straight south. But always pay attention, because it's always trying to come out of that west. Those are your big, big winds. So looking at my farm, it's set up, and that's why we have it. That's why we kept it. I don't kill all my big deer on that farm, but coming out of the west, looking for that northwest, having a stand. If I can say one thing, if you I think this is really where we've been with what I've tried to teach you is, when we go shed hunting, you can see how those deer transfer from bedding. And no, I don't believe that you can lock down a bedroom to a deer without a camera or actually seeing him or jumping out of his bed. So all of the guys talking about, that's his bedding area, that's where the deer bed. I would go one step further. That's where you leave them alone and they choose to hang out and they sleep there because you leave them alone there. It's not that they chose this bedding area. You've left them alone and they will bed wherever there's no pressure. They don't smell you. and then being able to go out and shed hunt and see the trails, and then being able to set up a northwest wind, a southwest wind, a west wind, and then have a north wind spot or a south wind spot that covers it. You don't need 50. You don't need 50 stands. And so you love shed hunting, you love walking and seeing where the trails. You're in information overload stage, I think, of the deer game.
And that's what I think that's the most fun right now for me, is learning. This is an experience that, like yourself, you don't get to do again. I'm doing it.
You're doing it the first time. It's always the best ride.
And it's so nice to be able to do it with, like you and my other buddy. It's nice to learn from somebody that's
just killed a big buck. What's his name? Shout out to him.
Brandon Vaughn.
Okay, Brandon. He just killed a big one, and that's what you always say is Brandon and you. Like, I idolize you guys as far as kind of big brother stuff, right?
Exactly. Yeah. To actually get the right information, like just the wind thing you just brought up, I would have never known that, just little stuff like that by hanging out with you guys is what I get from that.
But that's the fun stuff. That is the life. The life is to go ahead and shoot a nice deer and then spend the time in the garage, bro out, have the kids involved, let them play with deer feet, teach them how to cut up meat. I had a really great guy today that sent me a picture of a 4.5-year-old deer with like no ashamed apology going, man, I'm a firefighter. Shout out to Brad and his crew that are listening. I'm a firefighter. I see people die all the time. I see people at their worst. I see people and God work in miracles and save people. And then to be able to go sit in that tree and have a beautiful deer, read the script and whatever, and not have to worry about being judged like, well, he wasn't a 2 hundo. This is hunt the real world. This is a 2 hundo. This is a guy going out 70 degrees, working this is a real conversation I had, working all year to take a week off and then having it be 70 degrees, hunting your farm in Illinois. Where does that lie for you? Where are your goals? What are you going to do? Well, you hunt like you always do. It's just a matter on if you can keep your mind sharp that it's 70 degrees. The deer don't care. They got to go make little deer. They got to fight off the other deer so they don't make little deer. And you can't just blow up your farm waiting for the deer to show up. I feel like a lot of people go, that rut's not happening. Brad, you saw rut activity. It's not really happening out there where I'm at. And it's like, no, maybe not where you're at. You're probably still watching scrapes. You're probably still watching the field. We just got done with church and we're standing in the shade and I'm 270, 6'1", 270, wearing a long sleeve shirt and a jacket. My wife's freezing to death in the shade. I'm cool and cold. And I'm like, feel that, Nathen. We can stand in the shade of the building and be absolutely comfortable and like loving life. Like, look at this breeze and it's so cool right here. We walked I said, you stand on that sun. We walked 5 feet, stood out in that sun, and I couldn't take it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I represent a 5.5-year-old plus deer. I probably got a drop tine or a kicker, from probably getting shot in the shoulder by the feds. But at the end of the day, man, that scenario right there, if you're thinking, where do I go? What's the date today?
The 5th.
Is it the 5th? Mm-hmm. Okay. November 5th at 1:19 in the afternoon. We just had the time change. The rut is happening. It's the very beginning of the rut. It's a trickle rut because the moon's kind of in a weird phase and it's 70 degrees out there. And if you said, Chris, where would you go tonight to kill a big deer? And the first question I would ask you is, do you have one on camera that likes to hang out in one certain spot with his girlfriends? If not, I would go, well, have you hunted this farm for more than 1 year? And you'd say, yeah. Well, where on November 5th last year did you go and because I know at one time or another, you walked in that farm and blew out some giant deer around November 5th and he was bedded right down here next to the creek, deep in this dark timber that still had these pin oak leaves on it. And it was nice and cool in there. Well, duh. It might not be him, but there's going to be another big buck in that same area. These deer habitually do what other deer do in that age class. Those deer are doing that. So if it's me, I'm like, okay, the does are getting harassed by bucks and they want to hide. So where would we go in the woods, Nathen, with both of your children, both under the age of
9?
Okay, so both under the age of 9, perfect example. Imagine cutting a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old or loose in the woods, and we were out just walking and said, okay, we'll shut our eyes. And if you cut them loose, could they make it 100 yards and get lost in the thick brush?
Yeah.
That's what the does are doing.
Mm-hmm.
The does are literally like, if we tried to find your kids and we couldn't find them, we're probably in a good area to hunt right now. I'm trying to paint this picture for folks. If we're in this big open hardwoods, we can see for 100 yards. But if you're in this nice hardwoods, oaks and whatever, remember, they're not eating everybody. It's 70 degrees. I can't even think of right now. Like, my wife's not going to make us chili today because it's just not cold out, right? She's not going to make us some big, we don't have to eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about that for a second, they're not eating. They're not going to go fill themselves full of turnips and radishes, maybe a munch on a clover, maybe a little bit of candy, which is corn. Corn's candy. They don't even process it. It's not their full of carbohydrates type of, they don't even hardly process it. Goes right through them. They might nibble on some beans, but they're not going to eat. So what are they really doing? They're loafing in the timber. And if we were standing on a big oak flat, like where I just killed this big deer the other day, 5.5-year-old, all morning there, deer standing up and laying down. If we were in the pines and we cut your 2 kids loose and we closed our eyes for 3 minutes, if they went left, they could go 150 yards through this open pines and we could see them.
Mm-hmm.
If they went behind me, they would go down on the creek and down in the valley and we could see them. But if they went west, where the sunlight comes off the southwest side of these big pines, there's sunlight getting into them. It's where I hinge cut. It's where there's this new growth, thick stuff. And your kids could climb through the hinge cut and behind the multiflora rose or behind the autumn olive, and they could just hold still. Now, think about that. 30 or 40 yards, they could be in the multiflora rose and in the thick of the stuff and just hold still, and we couldn't see them. Now they're still there. They're snickering and laughing, right? The does aren't really running long ways from the bucks. They're just kind of going in and around the corner into the thicker stuff off of this big clearing, just kind of standing still. That's what your kids would do. They'd be laughing. Mm-hmm. Our best would be to try to make them laugh, and then we'd hear them and go. Well, the does are doing the same thing. They're trying not to run around because then they hear and the bucks would go, oh. And it's what I call like the piranha phase. And they're like, where are they? And the doe's like, Doreen, don't move. He's standing over there. And they're literally hanging out, standing around. And one by one, as the hours click on and the moon gets right and everything happens, the rut starts happening. And then she gets then she starts smelling a little bit better, and a little bit better. And all of a sudden he can't take it. Now he's not just using his audio. Like the leaves and the stuff and her talking to her fawns and whatever. Now all of a sudden he's able to smell her. So now he's getting a little more wound up and he's going downwind of these thickets and he's trying to sniff one out. He's just smelling them all. And he's standing around, he's listening, and he's standing around, and he's listening. This is not the time where they have their tongues out, fighting all night long. They've already fought. They're going to start fighting again as the does wind down. The big push of does is yet to come, the 11th through the 14th. The 8th is one of my favorite days. A big deer is standing somewhere with a doe right now, sitting with her, looking at these other bucks going, I kicked your tail 50 times the last 2 weeks. Leave me alone. And these does are just hanging out going, yeah, I'm going to give it up to him. You're out. And that's what's happening right now. So if you picture that, they're going to do that when it's 70 degrees and not expend energy. But if it was sub-zero or 20 or 30 degrees all day with cloud cover, buddy, you better watch for this thing to explode like a powder keg. And that's when you can sit in these funnels, and that's when you can sit on the edge of these fields, and that's when you can sit in these little tip to tip of these two timbers pieces, you know. But so I'm saying, creep up in the morning, get in the timber tight to where the open timber meets the how would you describe that, layman's terms? To me, it's like the thicket, where the thicket and the multiflora rows and the little saplings and all the new growth meet the hard big woods. Get within shooting distance of the very downwind spot of that and watch that consistent wind. But if these winds are crazy, don't go in there yet. Just wait a couple more days. Wait till these winds get consistent coming Saturday and Sunday and Tuesday. It should come out of the south and then turn around and flip out of the west because the front should be coming and the temperature should drop out and you're going to get consistent winds. You'll be able to get in tight to those areas. But when people talk about bedding areas, that's what they're talking about, you guys. Anytime switchgrass turns to a field, that's an edge. Anytime a field turns to switchgrass, that edge. And then when the switchgrass touches the timber, that's an edge. And then when that timber is wide open and then hits a thicket, that's an edge. The more edges you put together and the more winds you can cover consistently, and you're covering more edges with one tree stand, you in the money, son. You in the money. That is where you got to be. That's the simplest way I can put it. And if I just explained that scenario to you, and I said, that's what I did on the 35 acres next to the 60 acres, next to the 20 acres that we own. I have 3 traps that I made with food, edges, tree stands, and bulletproof sets with a west wind, south wind, and northwest wind, southwest wind. Nothing for an east. Who cares about an east? Take your wife to dinner. If you can do those 3 traps that are on that 35 that you've walked, that you found that big shed of that 8-pointer. I got a picture of him last night, by the way. He showed up. The big 8-pointer. That 35, there's 3 traps. How many traps in that 35 can I make comfortably without messing up the other deer? That the answer to that is 3, maybe 4. And then take those 4 or 3 and replicate that over however many acres you have. Not all acreages are going to lend that. I have 3 essential, three traps on 35, 3 traps on 70, and then 3 traps on 100, 3 more on 100, which makes, I really have 9 to 10 traps on 100 acres. And they're all bulletproof and they're all made for a certain wind. And if I just hunt them, it's not if the deer win, it's when they win. That's what I teach at consults. It's what I teach online at whitetaillandlife.com. It's what we teach right here. And the reason we're doing this journey right here on Land Life. And so when I tell you all of them, what am I missing? On the spot with Nathen.
Yeah, I don't know.
What's your favorite part about what I just tried to explain to everybody what's going on?
The wind.
Yeah, the wind's so crucial. Mm-hmm. Tell me what you've got from hanging out with me and me explaining and going all psychopathic about the wind, because like I'm always watching it, always lighting a fire, watching flags.
It's 95% wind. I mean, you got to worry about 95% wind, 5% of whatever you're wearing. Doesn't matter. Yeah. It's all about that wind.
Yeah. You've watched me wear nothing but my farmer jacket, my jeans, my cowboy boots. But that is one thing, is that those rubber boots, that's a big deal. Like your feet, even though the deer can still smell whatever sodium benzenol spray scent killer you put on them, they're still going to smell that rubber or whatever. But it's not like you just walked through, I don't know. I can't even think of something offensive to deer. Maybe a chemical plant. But if you're walking through diesel, dude, walk through diesel, because I spilled more diesel and leaked more diesel in fields than ever. Deer know and smell diesel. So if you're going to put a cover scent in your boot, boys and girls, diesel it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the wind's everything. I mean, I remember getting into the blind with you and you said, hey, it's starting to switch up. We might be having an early hunt. I mean,
we just get out. You can't take that chance. Well, right before I killed that big deer, it was swirling.
Yeah.
And it was only because he was 50 or 60 feet below me. And I know people like, you didn't put your stand 60 feet, did you? And I'm like, no, I put it, I came up from a bottom, got to a top of a ridge, and then put my stand up. I was 25 foot up. But below me in the ravine and where he was 50 to 60 feet below me. And it's not that he smelled, like I didn't do any scent precaution. I haven't washed my hunting clothes in 5 years. Blood, guts, smoke from the fire out front of the house, tractor stuff, whatever. I don't wash them. If they get downwind of me, I'm done. But most of the deer from food plotting and whatever, if I just smell like a tractor, I'm good. They don't know how, my goal is to set everything up so bulletproof that they don't know how far away I am. Does that make sense?
It makes sense because I've seen it firsthand. So, I mean, sometimes I don't think it would make sense if you just told me it, but when you see it firsthand, it just brings it up, especially how I learn, just as a visual learner. It makes perfect sense when you could see it actually happen in your own eyes.
Yeah, and we offer those. Like people can come stay at the Airbnb in the off season. You can take a tour of my farm, and you can see exactly what we do, how to set it up bulletproof, and do those. I think people call it like master classes or whatever. I have guys that come as a group of guys, stay at the Airbnb, and then they pay and they say, hey, listen, I need you to teach me on your own dirt. And I'm like, okay, I'll give you a price for that. It's daily rate. And that's what we do. And then we'll go like 3 or 4 other of my farms, and you can see the setups where giants have died. And I think that's a big deal. And if you're interested in that, you're listening, hey, come on, let's go. We just had a big deer hit the ground literally as we're getting set up for this. Noah Herman and his brother Drake I think they were hunting together, and that we had a big group out, and Drake shot this really big buck, and the report back was like 6 to 8 inches of penetration. They show me the broadhead, and I'm like, that's a shoulder blade on a really big animal. You're not going to get them. They jumped him with a dog, and I'm like, well, but what you can do here is they did what I asked. I think that I ask of all my friends and my listeners is, if you shoot at an animal and you hit this animal and you get down and go that advance from your stand or blind to that arrow, that's a foolish mistake, in my opinion, because you are instantly gravitating toward that area. And if they're standing back there 100 yards, they're listening to you. And you're in their bedroom already, or you're their buffet, their country buffet, and just back out of there. You can at least go back to your truck, go to McDonald's, call your wife, whatever it is, right? And if you can wait 6 hours to go back and check that arrow, if you did not see that deer fall, you will instantly increase your odds, as long as you don't hit a shoulder. Like, you're not going to get that deer if you hit a shoulder. And I just heard a bunch of guys in their 60s go, yeah, but man, if you use one of them 4-blade muzzes, you can just blow right through that shoulder. Okay, but listen, I'm not even doing that. You're my elder. I'm not even going to talk to you about that. Just shoot them in the liver. They're going to die. Just give them time. I mean, we're talking about a blood sport here. I'm trying to kill them. And I'm making a joke. If anybody knows me, they know that I had a friend, Don, that passed away, that shot a 4-blade muzzy, and he still shot an aluminum arrow up till 2020, 2018, 2019, 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know what it was, but that he sounded like Batman. I'll never forget his voice. And he said, shout out to Don Grandy. I talked to him every day. We hunted deer together for, 15 years. And he would talk like this. He'd talk a little bit like Batman. And I'd be like, Don, you really should shoot these arrows and a big giant cutting expandable. And he'd be like, nah, for me, man, it's a 4-blade muzzy, double X75, right through them every time. I had so much fun. He passed away actually holding sheds in his hand right below my tree stand when you're shed hunting. And I miss him. And actually I shot one of the Dave out of his tree stand. And those are the memories. You're not getting these back, boys and girls. Let me know. Let me tell you a little secret. You're not getting these years back, and you're not going to have time to create some of these memories with your little ones. When I give Nathen a little bit of hard time of why he passed this 120-inch deer, Well, first off, Nathan, how many 120-inch deer to 150 deer have you killed in your lifetime?
One.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
well, I'll promise you, before I shot a 150 deer, I had killed 35 or 40 120 deer. And so I'm like, you learn more from shooting these really cool deer and having these experiences. If I had a daughter or a son, I'd have shot that 120 the night before Thanksgiving with these beautiful leaves falling and tracking it through the leaves. And what'd you say? He was really close, right? Like that was the encounter. You said it was the greatest encounter of your life.
Yeah. So went down there, super windy, on a ridge.
Well, first off, you didn't want to go.
I didn't want to go, but my good buddy Brackett said, "Hey, listen, get out there." I like to, ground hunt once in a while. I know that's frowned upon, especially going after bucks, but
It's not frowned upon by the ones that know what's up. Like
Yeah.
killed a lot of deer from the ground.
So I got my ghillie suit on. I got a deer about 50 yards away, bedded down. And, after a while, I had a little basket 8 come to the left of me about 8 yards. Scared me. It sounded like a horse coming down that ridge. And, he took off 10 yard. I could have had a shot. I just let him go. And then I heard a little bit of a bigger horse, as you could say, coming through the woods. And
that infamous sound coming
Yeah.
through the leaves. This is big hardwood timber, y'all.
Mhm.
And it ends up to be a buck.
Ends up to being a nice 8-point. He was 6 yards to the left of me and then ended up 10 yards in front of me. I had a perfect, broadside shot.
On the ground with them.
Yeah, and I'm looking at him and I'm just like, you know what? And it afterwards, Chris said the best thing. He said, would you have shot him with your compound?
Yeah, one of the greatest topics.
Yeah.
We're going to do that for episode 9, but go ahead.
Yeah, and I said, yeah, I would have. I was sitting there with my
Because you don't feel
crossbow.
as confident with a with your regular bows you do a crossbow.
Exactly.
So you said I would have shot it.
Exactly. I don't want to, possibly with the experience that I have with my compound, I'm just not,
Which is admirable. But
Yeah.
my point really was, what weapon? Would you have killed him with a slingshot? Yes. What about a spear? Yes. Would you have punched him in the face and choked him out? Yes. Would you have killed him with your compound? Yes. What about a recurve? Yes. Would you kill him with a crossbow?
Yeah.
Would you kill him with a gun? And that's where it comes to all of us men. That's another topic for, we got to write this down. This is big topic for tomorrow's podcast, because I'm going to do this full rut every single day I can on here. So tell your friends, they better start listening to LANDLIFE. I'm giving them day-to-day breakdown. You got to figure out what it is to you. My only rule for me is if I shoot it, I mount it. Now I know where you're at. You really like your Euro mounts. And that's okay, because you don't have to mount it. It's not my ground. You're hunting permission pieces. You don't own it. You haven't bought a piece of property from me. We're not managing it. This is everybody's deer. If you would have shot that deer, this is big brother talk. After this, I go, listen, bro, if you would have taken your wife and your 2 kids and you would have went out there and tracked this thing in that full moonlight, following the blood trail, and then dragged this thing out in a beautiful night that was like 55 degrees and whatever. I'm like, that is one that you ain't never going to get back. That memory that you could have made, even if it was a doe, even if it was that spiker. And so I challenge all the men out there. 1, figure out why you're hunting, and don't be a wasteful butthead like I used to be when I was younger, when I used to want to kill them all. Let God sort them out. And then number 2, what are the fruits of your salvation with Jesus Christ? Are you in the gospel, and are you spreading the good word? And are you, what was our message on today? Are you discipling, right? Are you spreading the good word of Jesus Christ, whether you're an operator in a bulldozer, or whether you are a pastor, whether you're a doctor, whether you host podcasts and try to teach people how to kill big deer and set their properties up? Those are my challenges to you. 1, don't go look at your arrow if you don't see the deer drop. Give it 6 hours. At least give it some time. Number 2, what kind of deer are you going to shoot, right? And then number 3 is the fruits of the Spirit. Are you saved? If you're not saved and you do not know that Jesus died for your sins, and you are ashamed of your existence on this earth and the crap that you've done your whole life, and being born into generational sin, and the world is overtaking you. You got a porn addiction, you got alcohol addiction, you got, I've never been addicted to alcohol or drugs or stealing things or really anything probably than women. And that was my father teaching me that, and that's generational sin. But don't ever think that whatever you did, you can't be forgiven for on this side of heaven. It's the only way there. The truth and the life is through Jesus Christ and his blood on the cross for your sins. I mean, and that is legit. But I secretly, I don't know if these boys have signed up for it yet, but my guys in my life, Kirk, Nathen Lee, these guys in my life, they're going to be put to the test on our friendship and our brotherhood of who we are, because I'm going to be calling on them to reach out to these men as this thing grows, LANDLIFE grows, is that we are broken men trying to lead families and women and children that should never know our pain, even though it's okay to be humble and vulnerable with them and trust them, even if they let you down, because they are the only flesh on this earth that will let you down. There was only one that was perfect, and that was Jesus Christ. To know what the redemption felt like on the road to Damascus, when Saul was killing Christians and was on the road to Damascus, Jesus blinded him. He literally, I was blind and now I seen the light. He blinded him with the last image of God, blinding him and crushing his soul and then really sending him to a basement of a believer that all he could see was Jesus' face, that he just blinded him and took everything away from him. And the last thing he saw, and then he showed him the light, and he brought back his sight, and he could not only see with his eyes, but he could see with his heart and his soul and what life was about. And Acts 20:24 talks about finishing that race, finishing the race for the glory of God. It talks about your life isn't your own. It talks about being men, acting like men. That's in Acts. And iron sharpening iron. And all of us get down. All of us have to fall to our knees and read the gospel. And the gospel will give you all the guidance of this world, in this world that isn't our home. And you're going to meet the Creator, Yahweh, and you're going to find out that Jesus is the only way. So I just pray for you and your soul that it's not too late, and you do it while you're on this side. Before, I'm not going to Bible thump about the rapture. I'm just going to try to keep this little thing going and say, hey, listen, I didn't move the mountain of the feds and all the stuff that happened to me. People meant it for bad. Chip, the rest of the world that went after me, took footage, put it out there. It's not the same. It's not the real story, but imagine it as bad as you can imagine it. It wasn't like that, but let's just say it is. I'll take responsibility for it. I paid my price. They meant it for bad, and God meant it for good. He saved my life in it. Redemption. The people that are in my life now can be the same way for you. Stop holding on to all that pressure, all that hate, all that ashamed feeling, all the generational stuff of my dad, was hard on me. People are hard on me. Men are hard on me. I get mad. I get angry. I get this. I get that. Don't turn to, what I was saying was, I've never been on drugs or addicted to all this stuff. That was not my deal. But I have been beaten. I have been abused. I have been angry. I have not understood stuff. I should have a needle in my arm and a bottle in my hand with all the stuff that I've been through. And only by the grace of God am I even here talking to all these people, all these friends, all the acquaintances. You can call them fans, supporters. And he has a mission for me. So mine is to talk to you about LANDLIFE through deer, through equipment, through what the weather's doing, what the deer are doing, what my life's doing, what my friends are doing. And we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop. So I don't know, man. We've been right here, and I'm ready to get off here. because I want to cut it short. I want to get back to the girls, and I really thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. And amen to that. Absolutely.
I didn't really let you talk a lot, but we'll get through. There's just so much to talk about in so little time, and we're planning on getting a couch here, making this cool, setting this up. We're back on the camera. We're trying a little black and white. Let us know what you think. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and yeah. Hey, shout out to the girls for the wives and your kids for letting us get a breakaway today. And if you're listening right now, I need you to think about this. If you can hunt the next couple days while it's hot, go ahead and hunt. But if it's going to piss you off and make you mad, don't hunt. Just wait till next week. It's going to get cold. Enjoy your family if it's hot. Take them to Tanner's Orchard. Take them to a movie. There's a couple great movies. Go watch The Blind from the Phil Robertson family life story. It's a smoker, and it's about redemption. And we love you all. I'm Chris Brackett. This is brought to you by Herman Brothers Fisheries and Herman Brothers Realty. I'm a broker in Illinois. I'd love to help you find some land. Call me about a consult. I come put boots on the dirt on your farm, and go to whitetaillandlife.com. Love you all. I really appreciate you. Thanks, Nathen.
Yep.
Booyah.
Peace.